Okay, so got some roof rafters up. And I've got the other section of ridge board put up. These pieces for the ridge board were 14 footers because they were cut. They had to be cut when I was doing the concrete forms. And the others are 16s. I needed 16s to make the span. So when I cut when I formed for the concrete, I thought about saving as many as I could without cutting them, but some had to be cut. And so all I did is I spliced. Now I could have cut it off halfway at the last joist and spliced there where the joist, the rafter is, but it doesn't really matter because this is a non-load bearing ridge. This thing is basically held up by this wall. In other words, these sit on this wall. I cut the wall just a little bit short when I framed it in case the floor wasn't level, and then I just put shims in underneath. It's within a 1/4 inch, but it's a little short, and then I just put shims underneath each one of these. So this whole thing is really resting on this wall and will be resting on top of this wall here, except this one, after the roof rafters are in, I'll have to frame up and fill it in. Because I've got 9-foot ceilings in these rooms here, and so it's not vaulted in these rooms, and so I needed to keep the height of the wall the same as the other ones for the ceiling joists. So I'll just fill it in underneath after the roof is up. Anyway, so this is kind of how I do it. I've already moved the scaffold over to here now. I cut a bunch of them, and then I set the ends on top of the scaffolding, and then I walk the other end up and put it on top of the outside wall. This wall is shorter, so it's easier to walk this side up than this side. And then the bird's mouth, I try to put it about where it's going to go on this end, because when I'm up here standing on the scaffold holding this thing and trying to wiggle that end over, you know, it's 16 feet away. You know, it's a little struggle, right? You got to kind of wiggle. So you might as well, when you're setting it up there, you might as well set the bird's mouth as close to where it's going to land on the plate as possible. So when you're on the other end trying to wiggle it into place, it's easier. So it's just some little thing to think about. And then these here are going the other way. So basically, once I get up on the scaffold, I don't want to have to come back down. So I'll be able to place all of these to the end of here, because after here they drop down to 2x6, because I can do intermediate support off of the interior partitions, whereas here it's a clear span and I needed 2x8. Well, number one, I needed it to meet code requirements for insulation. It has to be R30 on a slope ceiling, and then also there's no intermediate support, the place to support intermediate, so they had to be 2x8s. So after these 2x8s here go up, everything on down there is going to be 2x6, and then and so those I've brought in already. I've got them ready to go. When I'm stacking them here, when I pull them out of the pile, I check. So this is called crowning when it's this way, and then when it's this way and you eye it, if it's crooked, that's called a bow. So this is a crown when you're looking this way. So I always crown my floor joists and my ceiling joists and my roof rafters, because if there's any sort of a crown or a warp this way, you want that facing up, because you want the downward pressure to fighting against the crown. You don't want to put it the other way, because now you're working with the warp in the wood. And you also want to make sure that that they're all facing the same direction, so your ceiling or your roof isn't you know, too wobbly. So anyway, so as I take them off the pile, I eye them, and then I lay them in here, so all the crowns are facing this way. So they're all some don't have crowns, most of them have at least a little bit. All the crowns are facing this way, because my pattern piece that I use, and I will be able to use my 2x8 pattern piece to do my 2x6s because the dimension is still the same. So the length, the calculation is basically the same. So so this is crowned this way, so all I got to do is just set it on here. I know I don't have to now, once I'm in here, turn the piece this way, that way, and check it. I've done that before I even loaded the pieces in here. So it saves a little time, makes it a little easier, especially when you're working by yourself. Of course, when you have 2 or more people, you get somebody on the other end, it's a little bit quicker. But anyway, so yeah, so that's what I done there. And then these here, because you need the roof, you're using 2 different dimensions, so you need the roof to plane. You need the tops of the 2x8s and 2x6s to be the same on the outside of the house where the roof sheeting is. It doesn't matter on the inside. What I had to do is notch them so they end up hanging down a little bit, because when I start with the 2x6s down farther, the backs of them or the tops of them will all be the same. It doesn't matter that they stick down in the room a little bit, because when you drywall it, you're not going to know the difference. So that's how you deal with different dimensional lumber. I mean, if this had to be 2x10s, for example, and the rest were 2x6s, then this would come down, nearly 4 inches into the room, for example. So that's a little on doing that. And then, like I said, in my scaffolding, I've got 2x12s just because I had them. You can use 2x6, you can use even 2x4. You just have to use more of them, and you have to support them a little more often. I mean, I've got support 1, 2, 3, so I've got basically 8 feet apart. It's fine for 2x12. So anyway, so that's and again, I marked off my layout on my ridge before I put it up, because it's easier than going up there with a pencil and then marking off your 16-inch, your 16-inch layout. So that's all done on both sides, ready to go. I'm basically ready to just put these up and nail them. So yeah, that's about it. Back to work.